Welcome back to the Successful Farming Podcast. In today's episode, hosts Dave Mowitz and Andy Campbell discuss insights and buying trends for 2026. Today's podcast is brought to you by John Deere. For generations, they've been partnering with farmers to bring cutting-edge technology to the field. Learn more about how John Deere is delivering solutions that work as hard as you do.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a Deere.
Hey, welcome to SF Iron, the latest trends in used machinery prices. I'm with Andy Campbell. Andy's with Tractor Zoom. And I got to ask you something. I was parked out at Tractor Zoom. This morning, I went and looked at the listings, individual listings that Tractor Zoom had, because it's kind of a good barometer of what's going on with the availability of machinery. Mm-hmm. And there were over 3,600 listings of high horsepower, over 300 horsepower tractors, and then 2,100 listings of 175 to about 300 horsepower tractors. Another 2,100 four-wheel drive and track tractors listed, and 3,700 individual listings for combines. That is a boatload of equipment. And I particularly noticed a sizable offering of large horsepower tractors, that 3,600 plus listings. Mm-hmm. And what surprised me is the number of 2024s and 25 with low hours listed. Now, when a dealer lists on Tractor Zoom like that, they plan to sell that machine. It's not that they're saying there's no minimum price, no reserve, right? Kind of a sale, or can they post on there, I need this? Correct. Oh, they do.
So,
yeah.
Yes, if it's a dealer, then it's a full, consider it a retail type of listing of that is what the price tag is. Now, what you eventually end on in terms of a negotiated value could be different.
Yeah, sure.
And except for in 2021, 22, the actual strike price vastly different, lower typically than the retail price.
So again, just looking through this, and it was 24s, 25s, a quarter of them, of the listings. 1/4 of the 3,600 tractors listed were just 1 or 2 year old tractors. Mm-hmm. I noted a lot of demo tractors on the block. Those that had less than 100 hours or 50 hours. They're old. So I have to ask you, are we seeing that dealer dump take place here a little later than usual? I mean, it looks to me like dealers are trying to get rid of inventory here at the end of the year.
So multi questions there, and I'll answer the last one first. Yes, they are trying to get rid of everything that they can. There's huge incentive for them to move equipment any particular time, but right now it's very evident that 2026 is more than likely going to be like 25 in terms of commodity prices, in terms of farmer sentiment, and net cash income, maybe outside of whatever this government payment shakes out to be. But they're trying to get rid of things. Now, the difference, though, is they're not trying to dump things. And I think that's a huge difference that we saw in 24 versus 25. Yeah. 24, it was a little bit of an oh crap moment of there is way too much. Interest rates are high. We're not used to this. We're not structured for this financially. We need to right size our inventory. Different dealerships, of course, are all different businesses. They have different strategies. They did it at different times. The summer of 24 was a bit of a bloodbath in terms of just reduction of value because so much hit the auction block. And I did a really neat study just probably for a webinar 2 or 3 months ago where I looked at the proportion, almost the shape of dealers out there with how much inventory they have. And I compared May of 23 with May of 24. May of 23, we were sitting on okay amounts of inventory. May of 24, too much. And that predicted a huge influx of dealership auctions in the summer of 24.
Right.
So then I did that same study again for September of 24 versus September of 25 to see like how do those shapes compare. And what actually shook out was that the shape of how dealers are situated with how much inventory they all have was almost exactly the same as September of 25. So the prediction on that was they're going to behave the same in the fall, in the harvest season, in the post-harvest season. And it's worked out that way. We haven't seen absolutely massive dealer year-end inventory, reduction auctions here so far in 2025.
No, we haven't.
Been about the same.
Remember, we talked a month ago. It's a surprise. It surprised me greatly that I was looking at the listing. Dealers typically will get pretty active with dealer sales at the end of summer to get rid of combines and towards November, right off of harvest. That wasn't the case. Not true now, though.
Correct. And from a dealer standpoint too, and they're really realizing this. I think they've always inherently known it, but but in 21 and 22, things just got a little wonky. You could sell equipment just so easily, and the game just changed. But dealerships make a lot of good business off of service and parts, and just having good long-term relationships with the farmer. Well, if you just dump stuff at auction, you don't get to develop that good relationship. And I think that a lot of them are pulling back or restructuring, saying, "Hey, if there's going to be a deal to be had, we'd prefer to have it in the office on a handshake, face to face." And that's where a lot of them have been moving and trying to figure out how do we become more of a consultant to farmers and less of, "Hey, I provide iron and that's my sole purpose."
So I have to ask, that is a major shift in some ways, although they've always wanted that. But this shift away from dealer auctions to this individual listing, of course, that had to be implemented by the fact that, outlets like TractorZoom make it so easy for them to list it, right? I mean, the online auction has become ubiquitous. That's the main mule in selling used equipment these days, right? Online. It's
online's marketplace. So not necessarily just an auction, but online. And I can't remember the stat, but there was a Successful Farming actually did a research a while ago, probably pre-COVID, and then there's been more updated ones since in other businesses of how much we buy online now. I mean, how many of your Christmas presents have you just gone to Amazon and just swiped across buy now, and it shows up a couple of days later? And we're just, as a society, we are way more accustomed to that. And we have talked to dealers who have sold tractors, so 6-figure tractors, over text messages. And it's just that new buyer is very comfortable taking place and doing things that way.
Do you remember the gee whiz moment decades ago when you'd see a ringman on the phone taking a bid, and you go, "Whoa, some guy's buying a tractor on the telephone? What's that about?" Yeah, it's just stunning how that. I'm trying to remember the last time I tracked it was I did a big wrap-up story for the magazine 3-4 years ago, and I quoted several large outlets, auctions, and dealers, and kind of calculated it had flopped because of COVID to almost 70% of machinery at that time was selling online. It just absolutely went that way. But I always give agriculture credit for being early in on online sales. But my first article, I think I wrote for the magazine about buying online 25 years ago already. Yep. And that was back in the bad days when guys were running scams with used equipment. That speaks to the comfort level, right? You're pretty sure you're going to get what you bought, or if you're selling it online, you're going to get that money. And it's so easy to set up transportation, financing on the spot.
Right.
Yeah. It's like Amazon. It's the Amazon of farm machinery is what it is. It's just so easy to buy.
We actually just had a conversation with a dealer yesterday who we're showing the systems that we provide at TractorZoom to dealerships. And showing her from a dealer, a salesperson walking out, taking a trade assessment with their phone on a dealership's or on a farmer's farm, and then that data flows right back to the dealership. They apply a value, it flows back, and every bit of the transaction, from the transportation request to the financing to the DocuSign that goes out to the farmer, that can all take place with just clicks of a button. And we're talking
about that.
Just hours that this can actually be done. Whereas before you are talking sometimes a month of back and forth. It's so much
and
more
that was when
now.
you dealt. Yeah, and then which there's still some of us like still go to an auction, but you'd sit all day in a lot, freezing at this time of the year, waiting for that one piece of machinery you want to bid on, and getting a hijack from you and going away in frustration. So, I just go for the pie now to auctions. Oh, and unfortunately, a lot of the pie has disappeared because there's not as many people. Anyway, so a lot of activity. Guys are trying to get rid of inventory. It's not that we are mindful of seasonality when it comes to selling equipment as much as we used to, right? December was late November, December, huge amount of sales for tax purposes. Right. And in November, it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. So what's going on?
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, no, your observation is exactly right this year. Equipment goes where cash flows. And I think everybody's perception of where their cash was or is just unknown right now. And with harvest being a little bit of an unknown, we knew that in most areas of the country it was going to be plentiful, but we had no idea what this commodity market was going to do. We still don't quite know exactly what these government payments are going to look like. And so it's the idea of what is my end of year profitability going to look like? I think that has slowed a lot of people down. It has not slowed down the interest, though. So the amount of calls, the amount of clicks that equipment is getting on TractorZoom, it's up. We're seeing a lot of that activity. What we aren't seeing a lot of is the actual end transaction. They're still happening. Don't get me wrong.
So people are shopping a lot.
Exactly. They're shopping. They're window shopping a little bit. They're kicking tires. And transactions are happening. It's just at a more prudent, slower pace than what we've seen in years past. But I think that just gets back to the uncertainty on cash and the overall.
Well, of course, and we don't have a tax problem. Farmers don't have a tax problem as they normally would. Sometimes.
Nice way to put it.
Yeah. We're just gonna. It's a nice way to put it. Let's put a positive spin on a really dull situation. So, it just was fascinating how the dealers did list and go at that. So they're trying to keep their inventory fresh, and also. The thing that surprised me, now correct me if I'm wrong here because you have more. The number I mentioned for the demo tractors, the very low hours, the 2025s with 10 hours or 50 hours or 45.
Right.
Typically, you just keep those in the lot, right? Don't dealers just keep it in the lot and say, I'm going to keep the cherry tractors out front along the highway the guys can look at? But they're putting it right out there to sell.
And and I wouldn't, again, that's a blanket statement for all of them. I'm sure they all have a little bit of a different strategy, but I just spoke with two dealers. I drove across Illinois, went to Indiana this past week and stopped in and spoke with some dealers. And they were mentioning what I'm seeing in the data is a bit of a paradigm shift from now going forward that dealerships will not be laden with equipment if they can help it. It's not going to be an opportunity for a farmer to go to a dealership and just walk up and down the aisles, kind of choose what they want, similar to how you can at a grocery store. I really think we are moving away from that model, probably permanently, unless something major happens to interest rates. But that is so costly to run a business like that.
Oh, the floor plans could interest rates.
Yes. And so really, I think a lot of these dealerships for the past year and a half, they've been leaning down their equipment a lot, some better than others right now. But they're going to continue on this path. I mean, the amount of planters that are out there now compared with 2 years ago, it's just a small percent.
It's minuscule compared to used to be.
It is, yeah. And I don't think it's going to go back. There's not a huge incentive to go back to the way it was. So on that standpoint, with this paradigm shift, yes, I think they need to do it financially. But from a farmer standpoint, they need to understand too that if something breaks, it's not going to be as easy just to go to the dealership lot and say, well, I'll pick out this new one, because your pickings are going to be fairly slim. And then that's why kind of this digital network is going to be more important. So you can look across the country, you can see what's available. Your dealership can hopefully wholesale it from someone else and bring it in. It's just going to be a different way of doing business, but it's going to require a different perspective of the farmer, because you do not want to be caught in a moment where you have to do something. It's going to be expensive if you have to make a move, because the options, the supply is not going to be locally as available.
So all those articles I wrote for the mag Successful Farming saying, hey, plan out your machinery purchases, have a multi-year plan in place on what you're going to replace when you're going to replace. They finally came to be, right?
Dust those articles off and republish them.
Well, I have to speculate here. The component shortage, COVID had its impact too, but on auction prices selling that way, driving everybody online. But the component shortage had dealers very lean on the lot, right? You would drive past dealerships and it was just empty. And then they kind of restocked. I've noticed some guys were carrying a fair amount of inventories here until recently, or even now. Do you think they thought, we did okay when we were lean, let's just go that way? Dealers are thinking, I don't have to have that floor plan, which has got to really throw a monkey wrench in the gears of manufacturers. Because they always plan on inventory floor plans
They do. They need a little bit of a buffer in there. And it's kind of interesting if you think about this, that a perfectly designed scenario, a farmer would let a dealership and then a manufacturer know years in advance what to be purchased and when they exactly need it. And then it's made and it's produced just in time. But we are not that well oiled of a machine. And there's so many environmental things that can break. And so you have unanticipated, maintenance that needs to be done. And so we have so many disparate parties along the way that it's not like one manufacturing, one supply chain that can handle this. And getting back to your point on COVID, that's why we had this, really lean time. Let's just call it wire harnesses and chips. That when that shortage happened, then you had trucks, you had combines that were ready to go just without a wire harness in them. Right. And then when those came, all those combines got delivered, but late. They should have been there pre-harvest. They got there post-harvest. And that creates this massive, little bit of a whiplash in the whole supply chain. And for the dealers, then that creates 2 trade-ins post-harvest instead of just one. And that's why we had a massive amount of combines in 23 and then into 24. And then
I hadn't realized. Yes.
And so we're still kind of working through it with high horsepower tractors. And
we are
seeing too many of these out here, kind of bringing this thing full circle. It's all the way back to that post-COVID supply chain issue of this whiplash effect of, the whole supply chain not being, just streamlined.
But who would have guessed? But who would have guessed? Well, you can never guess. The Black Swan event were, of course, the tariffs and the impact that it had. The Black Swan analogy being the thing that nobody anticipates in a particular market. And that slammed into them, or slammed into the entire machinery industry, dealers, manufacturers down to dealers, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're kind of experiencing now, is figuring that out. So guys are just, I assume, certainly, they're keeping inventories down. They're moving those tractors out. And again, I can't emphasize enough, the surprise for me is looking through the Tractor Zoom listings was the number of 2025s on sale right now. The guys are listing them. They're out there. They're just not letting guys pull off the highway and take a look at what's there. So
right. And from a dealer standpoint too, that is one of the more challenging things. Let's break this down into not high horsepower tractors, but compact tractors. A little easier to understand that if you have a trade-in of a 1-year-old, whether it's trade-in, whether it's a demo, let's just take a compact utility tractor that's got 50 hours on it. It's practically new, but it's used. And when you look at that at a dealership, you can't sell it for a new price, because what farmer, what buyer would want to go pay for that at that used, almost new price when they can finance something straight from the OEM for, pretty much the same money,
same price,
great financing. And if you can get, 0% financing for so many months. Then all of a sudden, like the numbers just shake out that you have to go with the brand new from the OEM. And then that low hour one continues to sit and it continues to sit. And you're right. We're seeing those 24 models just sit on dealership lots because that trade-in value is too high from years past. They don't have enough hours on them. It's just a mismatch for what's available in the system, and they're hard to move. So that's the crux that's out there. But getting into a lot of the topics we're going to talk about, that's also the opportunity because those values will come down. I'm tracking a ton of those on Class 8 combines, on some of these really huge combines or high horsepower tractors. We're seeing those retail prices of those low hour pieces soften up because those dealers are going to want to make those deals.
Right. So that's what we're seeing. I'm sorry. That's where this is leading to. You said that you're seeing some trends at this point in time that probably will carry in after the first of the year, and certainly during what was called doldrums of January, February, until guys get serious about planting, and then they decide they make the purchase late. What's going to happen here the remainder of this month and then on into after the first of the year?
Yeah, I think if you haven't seen it yet, you will see a lot of activity, depending on when you're actually watching this. But in December, the dealerships are out on the road. Like the ones that I went and spoke with in Illinois, their office was empty except for a few of the centralized business people, because the salespeople are out on the road making deals, trying to close the books up and end the year on a really strong note. Because they want to move this equipment, they've got end of year goals. So they're being pretty aggressive trying to hit those. Combines, your sales season typically ends at
they're done. Yeah.
And you'll hit a little bit of a peak in March again, but then it'll be the summertime when the harvest equipment picks back up. But I do think row crop tractors, we have one at our farm that we're looking to sell. And I think that we're in a relatively steady market, especially when you look at those good, relatively low hours, but pre-def machines, that I think we'll see a steady market with that going forward into the new year. And then with higher horsepower tractors, that's where the big question still lies, that the longer you hold on to those things, the more expensive they become. There's incentive to get those gone. And I do think that market has a little bit further to maybe fall. But we'll see. There's a lot of data out there yet on some of those high horsepower tractors. In fact, we're getting a lot of sales coming in right now, auction sales that are kind of setting the market, and it's holding, but there's a lot of them out there. So at some point, if somebody decides to dump those, you could find a good deal.
Well, I have to ask about that. I was surprised we didn't have more retirement sales in November listing. And that, wow, there's a raft of them in December. This had to be planned out for a while. Maybe I just didn't go and look in December for the listings. It looks like we have a lot of iron hitting the marketplace. And on retirement sales, it's going to sell regardless. It's going out the door. The other thing was the number of no reserve dealer auctions too. I had noted were listed as well. So this all goes all to what you're saying, right? These guys are saying, okay, we're just going to get rid of this stuff. Not get rid of it, but dealers are saying we're going to move it out.
Yeah. And so for some of those auction junkies out there that want to do a little spot checking and follow some things, Ben Higgins out in Ohio ran one of the sharpest auctions that we've seen. And there was a farmer, the retirement sale. They had 5 9RX 540s that sold at a retirement auction. I don't know if I've ever seen a single retirement auction that has transacted this many dollars. And they did a fantastic job. The values were right in line with what I've seen in 24 and 25 on those. And so, and that was just the 9RX 540s that sold. A lot of other equipment sold there. So that one's interesting in and of itself to dive into. But getting to the dealership auctions, like you said, there has been a lot. I'm just looking at what we have.
Certainly.
Chicken scratches this year. Canal ran a really nice one. Van Wall, Ballmer Kibble.
Mm-hmm.
Aggravation, PLP always runs an annual one. And this is not like it was in 24 where people are dumping a lot. When I look through these, like Canal, for instance, so two-store Case IH Kubota dealership out in eastern Iowa along the river. And with their auction, it was almost like they were testing the waters. There was an 8250 and there's I think there was a nice Magnum in there. And there was actually a lot of things that came off the back shelves. It looked like they were really preparing for a much cleaner, just a clean backroom start to 2026. So there were tires, there were, I think there were a couple of pallet forks and stuff like that. It looked like part of it, they were cleaning out their back shop, but their 8250s or 8250 that they sold at Combine, I was expecting this thing to be softer. And in fact, it brought a value that was pretty dang close to what it would have brought at retail with no negotiation.
Yes.
It was one of the strongest values I saw. But I think that's what happens when there's just not a lot on the auction market as of yet. They did it late November. Fantastic sale. So everybody's having a little bit of auction here and there, but you're just not seeing a ton of different machines at that same auction. It's just one here, two there. And that's how things are proceeding so far.
So I'm going to speculate here, not to put you on the spot, but just to speculate, and you can do the same thing. We are getting rid of the inventory. The industry's selling off the inventory that's there. New sales have been putrid at best. I guess what I'm going to speculate is if you're going to buy late model, low hour, now's the time to do it, because a year from now, that opportunity may not exist.
Correct. And it may be there, but it's not.
Not the numbers.
Because exactly, we are getting down, especially, like I said, with combines, sprayers, planters. I'm watching those inventory levels continue to drop. And
sprayers, especially, we had a boatload of sprayers. Where'd all the sprayers go? Yes. Right. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's right. Some do work through the system. I mean, you have some that break, a few get exported. And so you do have this bucket of inventory, and there's leaks in it, and you have things that go other places. But there haven't been a lot of new orders that have taken place for almost 3 years running now. And without that amount of new supply coming into the system, you're just going to work through what you have. So getting back to your first point of now might be the really good time to buy. I was just out at a ag lending conference in Indiana. And that was a conversation out there. When is the best time to buy? And I would say, you might not want to replace your entire fleet, but if you're looking for an individual piece or two, having that conversation with the dealer, that you're going to find a pretty good deal right now for those one or two pieces that you can responsibly replace before you have to.
Right. And that's why we see probably so much activity for the high horsepower tractors, late model tractors right now. Likely that's the situation. Farmers can afford that one piece, and it's the crucial piece. And they may feel a little more buoyant yet because the administration has made a commitment. There's going to be bucks coming their way. So is that going to cause a little price spurt here?
Well, there they are, mocking you. See you next year, loser. That weedy area that's got you thinking. Man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like Exact Apply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
That is super interesting. And because I've been thinking about that, and I've always been very skeptical that we would get a payment yet here in 25. And it's the case that we're not going to.
Yeah, we're not.
That's not going to logistics to do it in, in a week or two. But supposedly this will happen sometime in January. But we even, as of now, the first weekend of December,
right?
We still don't know the exact amount. And so, yes, there is a promise for future cash, but without knowing an exact dollar amount, I don't know what that's going to do to people's buying habits yet here in 25, because even though you're getting money, if you don't know the amount of money, does that add more uncertainty or does it add less uncertainty? And that's like a behavioral economics thing that I haven't figured out yet.
Yeah.
And interested to talk with dealers. I'm going to have a big webinar with them next week, and that's going to be one of my polling questions too. We should have probably 200 dealers on this webinar. That's what I'm going to ask them is, does this promise of future cash make things, essentially grease the skids? Or is it just because the dollar amount's not known? Is it slowing things down? And I'm super interested. I don't know what I'm going to do with the data, but I'm curious.
Well, it'd be, and again, just to speculate, I'm assuming and have a feeling for it. It's slowing things down in December, but it could be that we see an unusual increase in sales, late model, especially of the large equipment in January or February when this is known.
When it hits.
I mean, guys are feeling positive, if you could, with the commodity prices being what they are. And who knows, we may get a Chinese surprise, right? And I'm not just talking about the finger puller.
Yeah.
It could be. Our buddies over there decide to start buying some soybeans, for example.
Right. And they bought a little bit so far. It's been pretty far underneath the 12 million target.
Pretty anemic, right.
Right. And so I think the Chinese soybean on again, off again type of deal, I think that will create emotion. But honestly, I really think it's more in the corn, because there has just been fundamental great strength in corn. And we've done regression analysis in the past. Values follow corn prices more than anything else.
They do.
And so,
yes.
Yeah.
It's the bellwether.
Soybeans will catch the attention, but I think it'll be corn that really affects the pocketbook and affects the rational decision making of most farmers out there of, can I or can I not? Does it make sense? Does it pencil out? And so I think that'll be it. And I think we have a lot of nice tailwinds going into corn, even despite we're going to plant still a boatload of acres.
Oh, sure.
But
it's a given.
We are just well structured. The North America, the United States, we are really good at producing corn, better than anyone. So I think that will be the tailwind that helps, along with any kind of government payment in January, helps move some more equipment.
Well, I remember spending time plowing through the research. Successful Farming used to do a farmer intentions, farmer plans. And the one thing that was consistent over the 40-some years that I read those was farmers always planned for bigger yields. There was never a let up there. That was just a given that that's what they wanted to do. And if there was a tendency to do anything, increase bottom line, it was to maybe bump corn acres sometime, because the durability of that crop to be able to produce year in and year out as a cash cow type of crop that's there. So it'd be interesting to watch that take place, especially for intentions as we start going into the winter months. So the one thing I got to ask about, I mentioned sprayers before, but the one thing that surprises me, planters. Used planters, late model used planters. Wow, where are they?
Not there. And so so back in 2012, great corn prices. Followed that a lot of equipment, John Deere, Case IH, Kinsey, everybody
big dump
planters. Exactly. Right. And so you look at the amount of planters that are a 13 or a 14 model, and there's a ton of them out there.
Right.
We drop off significantly in 16 and 17. There's not very many model year 16 or 17 planters out there because there wasn't the demand. And then it was finally in 18 when we start to have more of those model years, and then more in 19. So looking back at history, if we were to repeat the same kind of time period again, if we looked at, it was 21, 22 when we had great corn prices here, production ramped in 22, 23. That about a 3-year span puts us at 27 before we will really ramp back up with planters. If we have the same kind of consumption of planters going through the system and need to be replaced. So that, if we follow straight up history, puts us early order periods of model year 27s coming back out. But there's one big fundamental change that's happened between now and then, and that's these upgrade kits. And we have seen a strong tendency to farmers upgrading their planter without upgrading their bar. My guess is we've seen enough of this that a lot of farmers are dabbling in this, that it'll extend the life of that bar, maybe 1 or 2 years. So I think we'll have okay orders of new planters in 27 into 28. but it probably won't rebound quite like we did back in the teens.
No, well, they're not there. But boy, you make a good point about the rebuild kits, and it hasn't helped that. Not to give myself any credit, but for years I wrote all these articles in Successful Farming about how to rebuild your planter, how to upgrade your planter, how to make it more accurate. So it became pretty much in the minds. There was a mind shift that happened with farmers, and we saw this with the research. It went from, if I need to improve my planting accuracy, I needed to get a new planter too. I should just make sure my planter's up to grade. And they started rebuilding as a normal course of their chores, winter chores. I'm just going to bring the planter in and rebuild it. And so they're all geared up for that now in their mind's eye to do it. And then the kits made it so easy. Bam, everything's there, away you go. And high strength steel came into use in agriculture, and I'm going to guess, my memory, 25, 30 years ago. And these bars are durable as heck. They last forever. There's not a lot that can go wrong in the in the basic static planter itself. And so you're right. You can take that 24 row and it can last for a long, long time with the kits that are there, especially with the electric drive. And that was kind of a key thing that really changed things with planter longevity, I think.
Right. And we still see a strong resale value on electric drives, certainly over ground drives, even hydraulics. We've kind of parsed that out statistically, and electric drives bring a strong resale value.
Yeah. Hey, now I'll put you on the spot. Tillage equipment.
Yes.
I mean, it's flat in new sales. Guys are. I mean, I don't know I haven't spent that much time looking at that. Is there much activity there? Is there much inventory when it comes to high-speed discs, for example? The real the sought-after items like that.
So what we've seen from a tillage standpoint, and if you combine a lot of the tillage categories that we have kind of together, so field cultivators, strip till bars, vertical tillage, that we're seeing a lot of that pullback in terms of overall volume and the value that they're bringing. Not a ton, but about 5% on our overall used equipment index.
Right.
Now, with that being said, I think that there's just not a lot of technology on those things. They do last. If they were good last year, they'll be decent.
New shovels, you're good to go for another year.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the pullback that I was watching with those, about that 5% on values, is probably more indicative of just a stagnant corn and soybean price economy than it is any kind of sentiment towards tillage. There's going to be less out there because I think we've just been producing less upstream. But from an overall tillage, we've seen it soften, but it's not like it's collapsing. But keep in mind, it never took off like a rocket during the great times either. It's always been a little muted both ways.
Yeah. Well, so I remember asking a group of dealers about that because I'd noticed that maybe even 10 years ago. And they said, in good times and tough times, when it comes to tillage implements, farmers just always kind of are steady purchasers because it's a price tag that doesn't cause you to have a heart attack. You can put down $80,000 to $100,000 on a piece of tillage equipment, and that's on the high end. But boy, when you get to that $400,000 mark when it comes to tractors, and they have to worry about their banker too, wondering. You can sneak in that $80,000 high-speed disc a little easier into your marketplace, can't you? Or into your budget.
Right.
And so it's pretty steady.
Resale value.
Right. It's pretty safe. Okay. So overall sales trends. We've covered high horsepower tractors. Did we leave? Oh, combines. We haven't talked about combines. You did mention combines before. We didn't have the big sales of combines before harvest, and now they're just sitting there like dead weights, aren't they?
They are, and it depends. And it really depends on how much supply is out there, because like we mentioned, there's always going to be those needs to repurchase, some upgrades. And in fact, I haven't seen the statistics on this, but we've seen anecdotally a lot of fires that took place in the dry parts of this harvest, especially in September and early October.
Yeah,
really.
Really.
Across the Midwest, things were really dry. So you're going to have replacement rates that are in there as well. And we saw a lot with Class 7 and Class 8 combines. Supplies are already kind of low for Class 8 combines. They've been reducing those supplies over time. And we've seen strong prices with Class 8 combines here towards the end of the year. So I think that's a kind of an okay model to look at of how the market's going to react when we have supplies in check and a not a great marketing selling year, but an okay one for some farmers. I think that this combine, Class 8 combines, is just steady Eddie right now, and probably a good model of what row crop tractors might look like next year. With that being said, though, I think there's a few different topics within combines that we should cover. One is an understanding on the big combines. So we're talking your, X9, 1000, 1100s, or the AFs coming out with case, that those machines are just so large that there's not nearly as many second buyers, and there's probably not a single third buyer that can handle these types of machines. Whereas if you look back at Class 8 combines, yes, they were a big purchase for people back in the day, but your systems could still handle it. You still had one or two trucks that could handle it. You had a dryer system or a dump system that could still handle the amount of volume you're taking out of the field. With these large combines, there's just not as many people downstream that can handle this. So
it's that paradigm shift that happens, right? All of a sudden, you need to have 2 or 3 more semis, 2 or 3, another dump, a grain cart in the field, a couple more, a bigger dryer. With that bigger combine came a whole lot of investment, right?
Yes. And for some of the middle, larger farmers, they could handle that.
They can't use it. Right. Yeah.
Yes. On a class 10, that some big operators can handle that. Even the moderately large operators probably cannot handle that as a trade-in. So the practice that I see is going to have to happen is whoever's buying those, the brand new X9s, is going to have to hold those for longer than what they're used to. They might roll now, be in a rolling practice every 3 years. They might have to look at maybe a 5 to 7 year ownership on that one machine and figure out a plan to own that for that period of time. Otherwise, they are going to be facing a situation when they want to trade that in, and there's no secondary buyer there. And then that is going to, call it depreciation, call it value destruction, whatever. That resale value is going to be so much less than what they paid for it and then what they're expecting, that it's going to be lost value if they have to trade it in at that lower value. So, and when you look at a depreciation curve, it almost exponentially decreases. So you lose a boatload of
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you could easily lose a quarter of the value in the first year, maybe 20% of the value in that, after the first year to the second year. Then you're down into like 16, 17%, then 15%, then 13% year after year after that. So you have to keep that in mind, because you want to get down into that teens percent, or even like a 8 or a 9% depreciation per year rate, if you can help it. That's when your machine's value can really be worth it. It is hard to make that value worth it if you're losing 30 or 25% of the value in a year.
Yeah. Well, it was that tipping point, wasn't it, when those combines came out? Certainly large operations justified. Large operations out west, as we know.
Right.
You get the Nebraska, Montana, the big areas where they're covering a lot of acres. But the other quotient that came into play here, that I think some even large operations realized, that those new combines had so much threshing and separation capacity that you kind of had a hard time keeping it fully charged, fully full of material other than grain. And in a year like this, where we had a huge corn crop, high yields, that was one thing. But you're also using that same combine in soybeans. Mm-hmm. And grain damage can go up exponentially if you don't keep enough feed rate going through that combine. So that was one of the speculations of the huge combines is, really, do you think you really can justify it? And can you haul that big head across the field or down the road? So I'm not sure if every time I think we've reached the limit on size of equipment, then they bring out more equipment. But this may be the limit, right? The resale value of these machines.
Yes, I in the past I've always heard it's the road size, it's the size of the bridges, it's everything else.
Yes.
But economically, the way that our farms are structured right now, at least in the Midwest, more your corn growing states, that it might just be the segmentation, the demographic split of size of farms, that who can truly take in that second trade in, and then it's not going to proliferate after that. But not to say, like you said, out west, when you have large rolling hills, and if you can be a custom harvester and you know who that second buyer is going to be, and maybe even the third buyer, those numbers could work as you pass that thing down. But as a buyer, you have to now have a little bit of responsibility and be thinking about who that second or third buyer is. Otherwise, a machine like that going down to Brazil, for sure. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to do that. It makes less sense, or it requires a little more long-term.
Yeah, may produce a softer market in that area as well. So
and that'll start to change things.
That'll start to change things. Yeah, the capacity of combines when you get into the class 8 and 9s is enormous, and it always surprised me if it's well set. And now with the automatic settings that a lot of these combines have, you can be running at capacity. And do a phenomenal job with a clean grain sample coming out of that. That in some ways, what I see some debate with large farms is, instead of getting one big combine, maybe it's time for me to get two. And I'm spread out 30 to 40 miles. I can have one doing soybeans, one doing corn, or two doing corn in two different locations. It rains over here, I'm still running over there. But boy, the logistics of that is always fun too, isn't it? So
we've done that at our farm. We did older class 8 combines and had two, and one could run soybeans, or geographically the people we're farming with now spread out a little bit further, but it allowed one a little further into the east to tackle soybeans while somebody's over in another county doing corn, and at a cost productive level. So from that standpoint, it doesn't work for every single farm, but the redundancy model isn't unique to agriculture. A lot of other businesses will run redundant models with critical pieces of machines, as long as those machines come easily replaceable, or you can swap one in and swap one out for a more cost-effective price. It's a business model that works.
Well, and this is what the speculation and discussion of that has led me to this point I'm going to make, and that is we could see shortages in that class 8, 9 combine inventory, used inventory in the future because of that. I'm not quite sure if that's the case or not, but if you're going to buy now if you can swing it, because the prices are very reasonable, and they will be even after the first of the year. In fact, to put you on the spot, I know you should buy what you think is a good deal, but should you wait until after the first year if you want to buy a combine, or do it now?
That's a good question. For this year, we have 100% can be depreciated. I think it's probably going to be the case next year, though. So I don't anticipate any, administrative tax changes happening.
Right.
You don't know your profitability next year. You kind of know it this year. It's probably okay, maybe not phenomenal.
Got a bailout coming, and China might buy more.
Yeah,
guys get all excited to buy. Farmers.
This one, I think you would. This is my speculation that you would probably get a better deal now, because from a dealer's perspective, if they don't sell it now, assume you're not going to sell it for till July, you have 7 months that you're going to be holding that thing. Well, you buy it in January, you have 6 months that you're going to be holding that thing. So it's about the same time frame. From a dealer's perspective, though, there are end of year incentives that they're trying to hit. And those are real. Those are real
and there are.
dollars.
And manufacturers are helping them out with that too
Exactly.
as well.
Yes. So I think their incentive and just their structural ability to be able to take a lower margin and offset it with something else is going to be better now than what it will next month. And again, blanket statement across everybody, but that would be my guess that you're probably going to get a better retail deal now in December than you will in January.
Yeah. I'm going to we talked a bit about this last time, and there's even been now more action, and that's semi trucks. And semi trucks are ubiquitous in farming now. And we know that, especially as farm operations gotten bigger, yields gotten bigger, you need to have more semi trucks. Mm-hmm. Boy, semi truck sales have just absolutely tanked. These are new sales. They haven't gotten any better. And there was the truck paper, which is an online source for that. They were reporting day cab sales of the tough market inventory continues to increase, and they were urging dealers, and this is a truck paper, a lot of dealers go by this, if they have not made price adjustments to adjust their prices according to reflect the current market. Prices of these trucks are sideways, but dealer asking prices are down about 7%. Or I'm at 7% on auction bids, sideways on dealers' bids. I had that wrong. But it appears to me, based on this, especially looking at the sweet truck farmers like to buy, that day cab, that the whole industry is not buying new. They're seeking used replacements. Typically, fleet operations that would change over at this time of year or during the year are not doing that. So there was a big drop off in day cab inventories, about 23% since the first of the year. And then new class truck sales took a big hit in November. It was down in November. It was down 44% from the year before on new Class 8 truck sales. So overall, Class 8 orders are down 47% year over year. Oh. So if I could speculate, does that mean far fewer Class 8 trucks will be available in 26 and 27? And I think that pretty much assured right now. If I had to make a recommendation, well, I'll make one. If you see a good deal on a day cab truck, buy it. What would you say?
Sales. I saw some good sales come up the other day because our truck, it's got a sleeper in it, but we don't use it. We might as well just have a day cab. It crapped out on us in this harvest, and it had to have it hauled away. And we've always struggled to work on this thing. And I think about the time and the effort and the energy that were put into it. And then I saw auction prices for some of these somewhere between $9,000 to $20,000 for really high quality machines. Like that makes sense.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of reasons that are pointing to yes on that. To your point on the auction prices sliding and the retail prices kind of going sideways, I see that same price pattern with farm equipment, and what that usually is indicative of. Auction prices will react to markets first. Retail is slower to react, which the truck paper was encouraging them to drop their prices to essentially fall in line with the receding market. So I do think it's probably a downward market, meaning now is an okay time to buy. Might continue to go down, I would say, into January, February, but it's down. And so you might have a buying opportunity at auction now, maybe wait a little while for retail prices to adjust if you're going to go there. But this is probably a larger reflection of the consumer economy. I mean, we've always said this when we talk trucks on here, that the truck fleet is not controlled by the ag economy at all.
Oh, gosh, no. No.
It's the number of Christmas presents you're buying, and it's the amount of food that's going to supermarkets and this amount of stuff that's coming in off of container ships. So it's not surprising that we're seeing that movement. And you're right. If you can get a truck right now that fits your fleet, it's probably not a bad time to buy.
Yeah. And it's one of those purchase items, again, that the banker will not get upset about as opposed to a $300,000 to $400,000 used combine, because you can get them out there, especially if it's a type. Well, in your case, I'll start looking for some Pete's for you and your dad and the boys. Right, that's what you need, right? Did you want to get a Pete? You want to get a Pete with a cab or a sleeper on it, because then you can drive it up to the farm in northern Iowa. Just sleep in the. See, this is this is why you enjoy talking to me, because I come up with these brilliant ideas.
Well, that, and also if I buy it, that's where I will be sleeping probably for the rest of my life, because my wife will be dropping some explicitives on me. And so, yes.
See, you got to understand, Andy's in central Iowa. The family farm is in northern Iowa. He just needs a place to sleep when he's up there. But then there is that whole thing about the wife. Yes. But this could be a way to justify. Take the family on vacation. You could justify by saying, hey, we got a big sleeper truck. We can take the whole family on vacation in the thing. Oh, yeah. Sweet deal.
I already have my kids hoodwinked into every time we go up to the farm. They know it's a vacation. They think it's a vacation. And they go out and they work. And so it is a great illusion that we have set up right now. And I'm not going to break that. So my wife knows the difference. But right now, kids are fully bought into going up to Nana and Bapu's place to work, and they love it.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that they're getting that experience. Good thing. So, a lot of activity right now. If you are looking, spend a lot of time online to look for the deals. Tractor Zoom. I can't urge farmer enough to go there. Not only because, of course, Andy, you're with Tractor Zoom, but also it's just a great website, and the way to be able to find these tractors that I did today and the listings that you had was pretty impressive. That's there. So I wanted to ask you, how many dealers participate in Tractor Zoom now?
Man,
I mean, you have auctioneers. It's over 1,000, isn't it?
Yeah, well over 1,000 auctioneers. I think covers 80% of the U.S. market in terms of number of auctioneers or auction coverage. And we work and list a ton of different dealer data, and then we work personally with dealerships, picking up about one or two every single week now that'll partner with us on listing their equipment, or on the larger, like having us help them sell equipment faster. So business is doing well at Tractor Zoom, but it's fun. Like you mentioned, the website, we have a strong development staff that are computer coders, data scientists that do just an excellent job at usability. And they really you have over 3,600 large horsepower tractors listed right now, dealer listings, 2,100. I mean, at 3,700 combines. These are serious numbers. So it's a great one-stop shop to go to see what's going on and target sales. Hey, I was going to throw in UTVs just for fun. Ooh.
We don't cover those. We should probably do that at a later date. So you can't buy the combine. You may not be able to buy the truck, but how about XUVs, UTVs? There's a goodly number of these that are being offered. I noticed that 22s or 20 is 2023s, 24s, 25s on Deere's most popular XUV or a UTV, which is the XUV 835M. The prices are ranging from about 18,000 up to 30,000 hours from one. There was a whole lot of 1 to 10 to 20 hour XUVs from 24, 25, all the way up to 5,600 hours. That's one that got roaded pretty hard. So it looked to me, not having spent a lot of time here, that when it comes to XUV, the price is pretty flat, probably sideways. There's not a big sell-off or anything like that going on right now, but there's some opportunities out there to make, because now you're getting into the same thing with trucks, construction equipment, and UTVs. It's not just a farmer market.
Right.
And so there could be.
Correct. Not just a farmer market. And the price, the decision making on those prices is a little bit more of, is this a toy or is this a workhorse? which then can influence the price a little bit too. So you have just different factors that'll move that market, and based on who you're selling to, because we've seen it with compact construction, we've seen it with skid steers this year. That market has done fairly well, as are the kind of the plain UTVs, because that section of our economy has done okay, and so they've spent the money to get those kind of things. We'll see how 26 shakes out. Whether or not
it's interesting. Money. The only indicator that I had, and it wasn't like there's several good sites for trucks, semi-trucks, for example, that go for analysis and provide that. There really isn't with UTVs outside of just sheer numbers. And that did show that there's a downtrend in purchase of new machines. It seems the market's soft. So I'm not so sure what that forecasts for the future, but if you were looking for that year-end buy, it could be that if you have to scratch that itch to want to buy something, it's either a semi-truck or a UTV. It could be that makes, and of course the kids will be happy if you bring in a late model UTV into play.
They would be much happier with the UTV. I find it still mystifying that they're worth the same amount right now. Your semi-truck and your UTV.
Right. Yeah. But, this is the stunning thing. You just took away my point.
It's the way that the Americans roll.
Yeah, it's so. And that's. I was at a farm in Wisconsin, and the father had retired, and his wife. There in Wisconsin, you can drive UTVs darn near everywhere, as is the case more in the Midwest. But they go on these trail rides that are trail highway, rides that they are. And they rolled out. They had to show me their new XUV, and it had everything, including air conditioning. And the price, and then I just said, well, you got to tell me, how much did this set you back? And he told me. I thought to myself, why don't you just buy a pickup? But I know it's not the experience.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to, this guy worked very hard to get this all his life. I didn't ask that question. To me, the cheap, practical farmer that I am, I'm sitting there going, buy a pickup. You can get a 4-wheel drive. Well, kind of in that same price. It is an interesting market to look at, and there are opportunities there. So numbers are always pretty consistently high. Although the speculation is, what little speculation I found was the consumer market's taking some hits when it comes to sales. Of course, everybody right now is wondering what's happening with consumer purchasing, which is directly tied to UTVs. And we didn't see the holiday drop-off in sales take place. However, every analysis that I've seen talks about 2026 going to be brutal when it comes to that. Maybe we see a drop-off in UTV pricing. So is now the time to go look at them if you wanted to buy a late model used? I'm not sure what's there. So maybe we kick that can down the road to the next podcast and look at construction equipment, UTVs, and of course, always high horsepower tractors. So year end, any other analysis that you want to throw in, something we haven't covered?
I'd say the last couple of things are all in the same vein of, it's similar to what we talked about earlier, of really, if you're going to upgrade or call it right size your farm, your operation, think about longer term. And that could include trade-in values. It could also include data-backed decisions on depreciation rates. What's this going to be worth when we trade it in? And just a couple points to highlight. We talked about large combines. So there's actually been 4 recent sales of an X9 1000 auction sales just in the last 30 days. Every single one of those auctions have sold below the current trend line of 25.
Really?
So the tune about 4%, which is still below what it sold for in 24. So we're seeing a softness in that X9000 sales that have happened this year. Another point is I was working with Bodensteiner Equipment and looking at forage harvesters. And what we found out was that the higher horsepower forage harvesters depreciate quite a bit faster than your lower horsepower forage harvesters. And so keep that in mind too. If you're looking to buy, it gets back to the same thing. If you're looking to buy that high horsepower machine, is there really a secondary buyer, or are there enough secondary buyers? Because you might get something that's a little better for you in the short term, or it seems to be better, seems to handle more, but is it really better for you in the long term if you're going to be trading that in 3 to 5 years and you can't get the money out of it that you really hope for, when you could just drop some horsepowers and really have a pretty strong retention of value. So those are two of the recent research pieces that we've done, but in the same vein of be wary on those high horsepower, those huge machines. If you're situated for it, make sure someone else is also situated for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to, if anything, it may not sell in the area. If you're in Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, it may be that the dealer takes it in, has to transport it out west to sell that used machine off, and then he's going to dock you probably on the trade-in along the way.
It could cost you at least a couple $1,000 to move it out there. Plus, moving it out there, there's already a lot out there, and so that moves to a different market, and you could lose some value there too.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be a lot of fun going on. Spend your time looking. And I'd highly encourage you to go to TractorZoom.com. Of course, Andy's their price trend guru, so you can look for his stuff being listed there. And just for fun, I can never do this enough for Ryan. Ryan Rusnick writes a phenomenal column, Interesting Iron, which is about classic tractors. And it's always a discovery. And I'm a tractor historian, having put out an antique tractor publication for 20-some years. I find Ryan's stuff absolutely fascinating, and it's a lot of fun. So it's a great site to go to and enjoy yourself. And we had Ryan on the podcast a couple of months ago. We're going to get him back on again, talk about the highlight. He said he'd noticed that quad cabs, deers, were picking up with collectors. So we'll see what the other trend is going to be out there.
That'd be interesting. But yes, Ryan's phenomenal. And I think just this past month, he not only had one video, I think one of the videos he collaborated with you guys at Successful Farming on got 1 million views. And he's like,
the Kinzabaugh sale.
Got 1 million views. And then the next one got 1 million views. And then the next one got 1 million views. And I mean, he's on fire.
He's now been discovered. That's where he's at. Yeah.
Everybody comes up to me when I go to trade shows or when I'm anywhere, and they're like, Tractor Zoom. You're like, and they grab this fictitious beard off their face. Like, this guy, like the beard guy, like,
Oh, you gotta see. That's it. Now you guys have to. If you haven't seen his stuff, you got to. Ryan has a gorgeous beard. So, and it's kind of like my son-in-law's beard. There's streaks of gray in the thing, so that imparts a great sense that you're dealing with a guru of wisdom here. And he justifies it. He really does. It's a lot of fun to see. When he does his history on these write-ups once a week, it's just phenomenal. So anyway, get the Tractor Zoom, go online, start looking around if you're going to look to buy. And we can end it with this, is that with the bailout and potentially flat prices, we could see some activity next year, but it may be that this is the best time to buy at the moment. Could be. So, Andy, next time, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. This was great.
Thank you to our hosts today, Dave Mowitz and Andy Campbell, for sharing your expertise on the 2026 auction market. Also, thank you to our sponsor, John Deere. For more information like this, please visit agriculture.com, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave us a comment. You can also follow Successful Farming on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And be sure to check out our other podcasts, 15 Minutes with the Farmer and Successful Farming Daily.